Okay, so welcome everyone to our panel tonight. It's our final Pride panel of the month, which has been really wonderful. We've had really wonderful people from the community come to talk about a variety of topics, and I'm very excited to be joined by a panel of young 2S LGBTQ panelists who will answer questions that have been submitted from Rainbow Elders. So I think this is a fun, it feels like game show-esque, I think, in a fun way. A couple of housekeeping items is just to let you know that this panel is being recorded. If you have questions for the panelists, you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to leave some time for them at the end. Before we begin, I do want to acknowledge that we are situated on the Haldeman Tract, which is the traditional land of Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Anishinaabe nations, and also the neutral peoples. I want to acknowledge that colonization is ongoing. I want to position myself as a white settler. Even though my father is an immigrant, we're still part of colonization. And also, given that this is a time where we are in like a really deep state of mourning and need for action more than ever with the current discoveries that are just never ending of unmarked graves of children at residential schools, that our work of reconciliation is pertinent and needs to be done now. And also to recognize that Two-Spirit is a sacred way of being, an individual who carries in them medicines and teachings of many genders and sexualities, and that colonization also brought with it homophobia and transphobia and all of these things. And it affected not just settler communities, but Indigenous communities. In the same way we have brought a lot of destruction to Indigenous communities, we've brought that with a homophobic and transphobic lens as well. So that being said, the territorial acknowledgement alone cannot accomplish justice, but we are committed at Spectrum to working towards reconciliation and ensuring that our programs, services, and practices are culturally relevant and accessible to Indigenous peoples in our community, and that there is a lot of work still to be done. Okay, so to get started, we have a wonderful group of panelists here tonight. I am excited for them all to introduce themselves. I've never met these folks, so thank you for being here. It is nice to meet you. I was personally a UW student myself, and like, is it bad that I wasn't part of GLOW? I'm sorry. But, you know, obviously I dated people who were part of GLOW, like that's just how it works. And for the majority of my university career was, I was straight, so apologies for that as well. To just let you know who I am, I'm a member of the Spectrum Board of Directors. I live in Waterloo. I am married. I have a 2-year-old who is just screaming mama in the background, and his other mom will be putting him to bed, but he'll probably make a cameo. And I am, hi buddy, I'm excited to join you all. So I'm gonna mute myself for a minute and let you all go around and introduce yourself. If you want to say your pronouns, that's great. My pronouns are she, her. Yeah, my name is Suzie. Also, my name is Mama. And if we want to start with Midas, so then everyone can just go around, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Midas. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm 21 years old. I have been one of the GLOW coordinators for the past 4 terms, so it's just over 1 year. In my first term as a coordinator, we had to move everything online because of COVID, so I got to be part of that transition. I was one of the first 2 coordinators who got paid for this role. I was part of GLOW's 50th anniversary, and I'm very happy to be able to continue being part of GLOW and have these amazing learning opportunities and being part of events like this. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns. I'm also 21 in my 3rd year-ish at university. I'm in my first term as a GLOW coordinator. So I'm really excited to be working with Midas because it's very fun. Before I was a coordinator, I was the marketing exec for 2 terms and then really enjoyed it and had far too many ideas of projects to do. So then I became a coordinator and now I get to do them. Before I came to university, I was in my school's GSA, which was first it was called the Gay Straight Alliance, and then it was called Gender Sexuality Awareness Club. And I was in that from grade 7 through grade 12. And the whole time I thought I was straight. And then I had a boyfriend in grade 11, and we broke up after about 4 months. And then a year later, I thought, wait a second, people like kissing, and realized I was asexual. And then when I came to university, I was able to join the Glow Center, knowing that I actually was not straight. And that was very nice for me. It's a lovely place. So yeah, that's me. Sam, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Sam. I live with Sarah. She's in the other room. I use they, them pronouns. He is also fine. I tend to use it in a professional context because I'm male passing. So I am the external and operations director of Glow. It's my first term volunteering with them, but because Sarah's involved, I've kind of been around for a while. I'm also 21. And I am from Ottawa, so I'm not super familiar with the community here, but I've been getting a lot more involved. This term, I joined so many committees. And when I was in Ottawa, I was super involved in the queer community there. I founded a by and for trans youth group called Safety and presented at conferences and did a lot of work specifically in healthcare. And beyond that, I have my own crochet business, and it's fun on top of course being a student, but lots of aspects of my life, not just the queerness. Josh, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Josh. I use he, him pronouns. I'm 18 and a current engineering undergrad at Waterloo. I'm one of the executives of Drag Club, so I'm actually not part of Glow or Spectrum. Yeah, and that's really all about me. You guys all had like great stories. I'm kind of just here. I always knew I was gay. It was just always a thing. I knew I liked drag, so started doing that in Drag Club as soon as I got to university. Zahra, I'll give it to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Zahra. Like Josh, I'm from the Drag Club. I'm one of the execs at the Drag Club. I am 21 years old and I am finishing up my 4th year at UW. I'm double majoring in computer science and combinatorics and optimization, and I'm minoring in fine arts. So if you guys are in computer science, I might have taught you. So I've been an instructional support assistant for a while, and I've been a math TA, and I work at the student success office. So you might see me. I unfortunately didn't have that much of a chance to do a lot of activism because I'm from a violently homophobic country. So coming here to Canada was the first time I realized, wait, so so wanting to like kiss everyone is not a byproduct of being in a girls' school. So that was my life for a bit, and then I realized, oh, you guys weren't in love with each other. Okay, never mind. So here I am. I'm still getting used to being out of the closet, and I'm still getting used to, just being me and putting up all these pride posters everywhere and giving dagger eyes to anyone who looks like they want to say anything. And I think I have nobody else to pass anything on to. But if I do, Suzie, I'm sure you would remind me.
No, thank you, everyone. That was really wonderful, and I'm very excited to meet all of you and for us all to be here. So the format of this is that we have 5 questions that have been submitted in advance from elders who I think you probably don't even know, like they're anonymized questions, and I'm going to ask them to you, and feel free to interpret them how you like. We have about 10 minutes per question, so I will try to move us along if we keep going, but we've found with these panels so far that timing has been just fine. So this is the first question. Now, in the time of COVID, and more importantly, knowing there are no bars and dance clubs specifically for the queer and trans community, how do you socialize, find support, and foster positive relationships and friendships with people?
Well, I can start off by saying that it's been pretty easy and pretty simple because let's start with the fact that there are no gay bars. in Kitchener-Waterloo. So shutting them down didn't change anything. But yes, it has been a little difficult to access gay people. That's kind of weird to say. But it's like, find other non-straight people online. But that's the lucky part of being in that university bubble where there are clubs and things that. And I've met so many people through clubs, and I'm sure that anyone here that's been to a club can attest to the same thing.
Yeah, anyone else thinking of how you have maybe like specifically met someone new over COVID, or if you also haven't, like if you've also been more isolated and what that's been like?
I can go next. I'm a very introvert person. I don't talk with people unless I absolutely have a reason to. So even if we had a bar or club, I wouldn't have like gone to it. When I moved to Canada, I found the support and friendship in Glow. And I will always say this, I just love existing in Glow around these people. So staying in the executive team kind of allowed me to hold on to those connections and get the support that I needed, and also provide support for my peers and also my friends. A lot of the times that feeling that I've been, I have a purpose and I have this responsibility was something that like kept me going, and like just function as a person. Being in this position, I get to see these amazing people who are passionate about our community and want to make a difference. Some of them every single week, our exec team, and also new people every beginning of the term, because I do a part of our training. So it's just great. I don't have like very strong friendship with all of them, but those who I get to like see on a regular basis, that's just all social life that I need. Yeah.
I have to agree with Midas. Really joining the Glow exec team in the fall was so fun. Just our weekly meetings were like my social time, even though it was just like a meeting to like talk about our projects. That was when I really found, space with a community that I was happy to be a part of. And I also have to agree with what Zahra said about not going to bars or clubs, really. I was lucky to have found all of my friends just like by accident, I guess, during orientation week, like gays attract, right? So we were just lucky enough to end up in the same orientation group together, and then like that's how Sam and I met. So I was really lucky that way. But I do think it has certainly been a loss online, especially for like incoming university students who haven't been on campus before, because they haven't been accustomed to the spaces we have. And it's also hard. I'm lucky because I'm not like interested in dating, especially at the moment. But for those who are, it's really tough to meet people and be able to like spend time with the people you meet.
Yeah, like COVID dating protocols feel like a whole big can of worms. Dating is also, in my history, has been like most of my friends, many people my child now calls auntie, are like people I've dated. So I also think queer dating is its own way to sometimes make friendships. I also want to apologize because the last queer bar that existed, there was the Order, though they weren't explicitly queer, but it was called Club Ren. And it opened in 1984, which is the year I was born, and it closed in 2013, which is the year I came out. And I feel personally responsible for that in some way. I don't know, it just really resonates with me. It's as old as my straight self was. I know, I'm sorry guys. So thank you. I think like the internet has changed everything, and it's like for those of us who are not part of mainstream communities, like when I was coming out, like I had, and way back, like it was 10 years ago, but like I found people online, like that's how I found connection, because for me, it was easier to be me online and then me in real life. And I think there is a lot, I've seen that happen for a lot of folks. So the next question I was really interested in because it like, you feel free to have an opinion about the question as well, and how it comes across to you, you know, because these are questions from folks who have a different perspective. And I had a question about this because I was like, I'm not sure exactly what this means, but the question is, given the history of their strength together rather than apart, do you think there is too much silo building within specific identities in the overall 2S LGBTQ community and not enough of joining together under the same umbrella, such as we see in the celebration of Pride? And I got a little bit of clarification, and the clarification was the intent of this question was, so say when it's Pride Month, everyone who is part of queer and trans and two-spirit communities is invited to come. Whereas, you know, at Spectrum, we have trans support groups, we have non-binary support groups, there would be asexual groups, like there are these different siphons, and people section off and meet with those or form relationships or organizing within those smaller communities within the queer community. And that's what the question is asking.
I guess the immediate thought that I would have is, I definitely felt this growing up in a homophobic household, and I'm sure many queer people can also relate, of not having the representation growing up, not seeing other people, and that kind of plays into wanting an identity for yourself that you weren't really able to pick up from sources around you. So I can understand why there is such a need for individual identities, for the difference between pan, demi, bisexual. Like, some people would say those are all the same thing. Some people would say they're completely different. And it's sort of just like, to me, it's kind of like, I understand why you want your own identity, but I understand the question of why not just come together and be like the queer community. We're all queer. Like, I think nobody's ever been offended by that term. So I'd say, why not both? I agree, yes, there is sometimes a little bit too much individualization, but sometimes it's great to be individual and have your own identity for everybody. As long as everybody's happy, who cares?
That brings to my mind the idea of, well, there's something that I should have mentioned in the beginning of like my introduction. I'm pan, but I tell people I'm bi because I don't want to sit and explain the concept of pansexuality to them. Or like, you know, if they seem to be somewhat like, you know, there are two sets of people, one that will understand pansexuality within 30 seconds, and then one that require me to pull out my portable whiteboard. And I'll tell people I'm pan if they belong to group A, but I'll be honest, you don't know which one's which by the time until you tell them that, right? But no, that's something that I do want to say. In the end, these labels, I feel personally, that these are labels that are primarily used for you because you want this label, and this label helps you with your identity. If this label doesn't help you, throw it out. If you don't seem to identify with one's particular community and you still want to use the label, I mean, go, you do you. If you don't, if you like the community, use the label. If you don't like the community, you want to use the label, it's still yours. But yes, there can be that sense of heavy individualism, in the sense that there's that, because I mentioned my sexuality because I wanted to mention the biphobia and the panphobia that does exist in the community. And I do think that that is a bit of the result of the individualism that has come out of people being very strict within the subsets of their group. So like, I can't tell you how many people have told me to pick a side, right? And I'm like, that comes out of a sense of individuality, that you can only be one thing to begin with. And I'm like, look, I'm a computer scientist, so I will accept one kind of binary, no other kind. Sorry. All right. And that's all I want. That's all I can really say. Individuality can be helpful, but when you get too into it, it can be hurtful.
Just a 10 out of 10 computer scientist joke. I'm so happy to have heard that. Midas, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I completely agree. When I was reading this question, I thought the question was, do we think these, like having these many identities is something that is separating us? And it's not. These are not there to separate us. these are just for people to learn more about themselves and find people who have similar experience. Other people who like have similar experience as you do, like when you find them, you get those opportunities to look up to them and see that, okay, somebody who's going through the same thing got there, I can go there, or these are the ways that they tried, didn't work, I can try them, blah blah blah. Also, for me, I grew up in a country that homosexuality doesn't exist, period, was a fact, let alone other identities. Learning about different identities and like actually going through the description, common description, not everybody has the same definition of every identity, was something that helped me to find myself. And also it challenged a lot of like hetero cis normality that was already like in my life. See that, wait, that doesn't make sense. So ultimately, I think this is a great thing. At the end of the day, we are all part of 2S LGBTQ plus community. We are one community. The thing that separates us is not us having diverse labels and identity. The thing that separates us is not us excluding each other, it's us not actively including every single group. So that's my 2 cents. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I mean, the very concept of queerness is just that we are multifaceted and there is fluidity and there is a spectrum and then also like a roller coaster line, like, and a circle maybe, like there's a lot. So yeah, I know I've found community in niche parts of my identity that have been really important to me. And then also stepping outside of that niche, like stepping outside of that friend group I have that's just like 30 something queer women who are moms, like is good too, because I need to expose myself to other folks as well. So the third question.
Sorry, can I add on
oh,
to
go
that?
ahead. Sorry, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to say it's a little bit tough because personally, asexuality seems kind of like more like a new identity to some people. It really gained popularity in like 2001 when the main website was started. But it's kind of tough because for ace and aro people, silo building is kind of necessary because experiences are very different from like queer people or trans people. And it's also tough because when you think about that celebration of Pride, everyone wants to be able to like express themselves in whatever way is comfortable for them. And for some people, that means, you know, walking down the street like fully naked. And for some people, that makes them uncomfortable. Not just like ace people, but like, you know, it can make people uncomfortable. So then they aren't necessarily like compatible in that way, which is really tough. So it's important to have like specific groups for different people, but sometimes that's used as an excuse to not feel the need to include them in the overall group. And that can be really difficult because you need that like the support and that backup from the wider group when you have like similar problems. Like one of the things that ace people face especially is being told it's a mental illness, and like what identity under like the queer and trans umbrella hasn't had that before, right? But people seem to think that our issues are like very, very different when really at the root they're not. And so they're like, oh, you have your own group, great, you have your own group, you don't need us. But yes, please, we do, please need you. So I think it is beneficial to have those groups because you need your own space to have people who understand you, but also people who are part of the wider group need to be understanding of everyone in the group, not just the prototypical representative.
Yeah, thank you. I think like the things you're hitting on that having a smaller siloed group is a form of protection at times is huge. Like, I think, Zahra, like that relates to what you've said about biphobia as well. It's like, it's not always that people want to not be part of the larger group. It's that they're not included. Like, there has been a lot of lateral violence. I think especially trans folks in queer communities have experienced this, and there has been a separation because it's been necessary, because they've experienced, like, say, transphobia or racism or all of these things from other queer people. So sometimes these groups are points of protection. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think moderators aren't supposed to have an opinion, but I'm not good at that. So I really like what you said, and I agree.
Can I just
yeah,
add?
Sam.
Yeah, okay. As a trans folk, I think also I have that intersecting identity of like the like panphobia, and then also being a trans person. And so I just tend to tell people I'm gay because it's easier. And then when I date girls, they're like, and then I just, blow their minds. But that's okay, because it's just, people know what gay is. They don't necessarily understand bisexual, or like, I get a lot of comments about like, oh, you're secretly gay, or you're gonna cheat on this person because you don't actually know who you are. And that's something that really affects me. I don't like that. And then I think just for trans people, it's so different from a cis experience. Like, I'm taking a course right now that was written by a queer woman, and they ask questions that are very obviously transphobic and very obviously really traumatic for me. And nobody said anything because they don't understand the trans experience and they don't value lived experience. And I think that, unfortunately, just, gay people don't have that understanding of what it was like to go through top surgery, or what it's like to stab yourself every single week. And I think we can all come together, and we have all experienced probably like medical horrors, and like Sarah said, that like the mental illness aspect and so many things like that. But I think having that specific trans community, and for me specifically a non-binary community, and understanding that like gender is fluid and gender doesn't necessarily have to be this rigid thing, that's something that I don't think I would be able to gain comfort out of by just talking to cis gay people.
Like, I'm neutral, but just a big high five. Thank you for saying that. I think that is, I think you've all really, I like that. I think we started this question with an answer and then all kind of come around to even like a different point than it started from. And I think that's really wonderful. Okay, so the next question I find very interesting, and I'm interested for your answers. So this is from another elder. It says, it has been my experience over the years that young 2S LGBTQ plus folks lack knowledge of their community's history. Attempts have been made in many cities to organize intergenerational projects, and these attempts have consistently failed. So, first of all, bravo for participating in this project. Why do you think so few young 2S LGBTQ plus people know their history? And do you agree that you don't know your history? I guess is also like, feel free to, like I said about the questions, like I think they're good, and I think we're learning people's points of view, and I think also I'd love to hear what you think about all of it.
I'd like to start off. Yeah. Okay. So as the champion of the Glow's 50th anniversary trivia, and also the Queers trivia, I value our history. I get a lot out of it. I think there's a lot to learn. I also think that, at least, so because I'm from Ottawa, there's the Ottawa Senior Pride Network. There's a lot of intergenerational work going on. The kind of work I do with my youth group is really trying to bridge connections between adults and kids. So I definitely know that not everyone knows their history. Like when I was doing those trivia nights, a lot of people really struggled, and they were like common questions that I thought you just should know. I wrote down when I was thinking about this question, we've been watching a lot of Drag Race, and I think one of the things that I've really learned from Drag Race is like gay culture and queer culture. They talk about Paris is Burning, and they talk about references to voguing and like gay rights movements, and specifically in like the US context, but that's still something that's like exposing a ton of queer people to their history. And I think that's really important, and that kind of thing needs to keep happening. And we just don't get that kind of experience in mainstream television.
I agree with Sam, especially about TV and how queer TV really, really helps get more history and more information out. But what I want to point out is the reason we don't. First off, I think that I don't agree with the statement that we don't know much about our history. I want to say that's a very generalized statement. That's like saying we don't know much about the history of Poland. I mean, I guess. But I mean, you don't know that. Some of us very much know a lot about the history of Poland. Not me. I don't know nothing about Poland. But the point is that we don't know a lot about this stuff because we weren't taught this stuff. So much of gay history has been erased, has it not? So if you're going to erase this stuff from our textbook, we're not going to know about this. If this is stuff that we haven't been talking about, we're not going to know about this. I'll give you a very simple example. I feel like I've established during this entire forum, I've established that I'm kind of smart, but I didn't know the Winter Olympics were a thing until I was 19, and I thought everybody was joking. I was like, what do you mean? There's no Olympics in the winter. Because I grew up in Dubai, I was like, Winter Olympics? No, come on. I mean, what, you play what, ice hockey? So it's kind of stuff like that I think it's very similar to that. I mean, there was ice hockey, there was an AIDS epidemic. If you don't know about either of those things, and these are things that have just been erased. But a lot of times you do learn a lot about this because we have the internet now, right? It was the internet that taught me about Marsha P. Johnson. It was the internet that taught me about Stonewall. It was the internet that taught me about Gilgamesh and Enkidu, and the fact that my sexuality is not weird. So I want to say that we are more educated than you think, but we're also just very, very tired and very, very lazy, and most of us speak in meme anyway. So you wouldn't catch us talking about the Stonewall riots, but we know they exist.
In my before I was a mom, I used to produce stand-up comedy shows, and Zahra, I would just love to see your 1 hour set, please. I am on board.
I love you.
Thank you. I think everyone has made really good points. And I think we can also acknowledge that the experience of the person asking the question is the younger folks they've talked to haven't known things. But you've also addressed why they may not know. And then we have 5 folks here who are very invested. Scott has put in the chat the link to the Grand River Rainbow Historical Project, which is very cool, which Jim Parrott, who is the recently retired executive director of Spectrum, who has been organizing, those of you with Glow would know who Jim is, locally for decades at this point. And it's fun to take a little browse through these cute old flyers for gay dances. You can see all of Rainbow Reels, previous programs. There's a lot of very interesting local stuff you can dig through if you're interested in things locally. Does anyone else want to add to this?
Midas? I just one small thing that I remembered.
Yeah, okay, Zahra, then Midas.
Oh, actually, Josh, I'll let you speak because I saw that you were.
Oh, yeah. Okay, wait. Midas, and then Josh, and then Zahra.
Cool. This was a very interesting question for me. I was actually telling our service manager and that I'm very confused by this. Why do people think that we don't know the history? Because similar to identity, the thing that I had access to as a person who didn't grow up in a white country was history. The Wikipedia page for Stonewall was not censored. The Wikipedia page for homosexuality was. So this is where I get my information. But there's something that we shouldn't forget. What history? The history that white people taught us and also erased. I don't have access to that history. I'm Persian. My country's civilization is as old as Greek. We know about Greek people like love of homosexual love. We don't know anything about like Persian people homosexual love. The best thing I could get my hands on was this book called Women's with Mustaches and Men's I'm blanking. Somebody help me. I will put it in the chat, but that was like mind blowing for me. I was like, you're telling me a Persian person is also queer? So if anyone has access to those history, I would very much love to learn about it. And I would like to teach it to other people too. But this is like a very big questions. We are, even if we didn't know about history of queer people and trans people in US and Canada, we are learning it through Netflix. What happens to our history? Where is my history?
Thank you. Great point. Josh?
So first off, Zahra, the Polish person in me is very offended by your prior statement. Just to start off. And secondly, this is going to be kind of controversial. I don't think, well, into this panel, I don't think a lot of young people know their history, only because we take it for granted, the privileges that we have. And when something doesn't affect you, the history of something doesn't affect you, you don't really tend to want to learn about it. Like, I know for me, I am a drag queen and I'm gay. So I know a lot about those two parts of history. But if you ask me anything about asexual history or trans history, no clue. Absolutely none. It's partially because I do think that as younger people, we are, again, taking things for granted. The rights that we haven't had to fight for, thanks to, all the elders that are sending in these wonderful questions. But also, I feel like sometimes we're a little bit, I guess the word is apathetic. We don't really care as much. Not to say that not everybody doesn't care, because like Zahra, you were saying that you actually went out and like tried to learn as much as you can. Midas, you said that as well. Like, I understand that not everybody's like that, but from my personal experience, like Suzie, you were saying that the person that wrote this probably has encountered a lot of younger queer people who don't know their history. I know from mine, people know what's applicable to them, and outside of that, they don't know anything.
I think I'm going to say it again, I'm sorry, for ace people specifically, it's nicknamed the invisible orientation. So it's pretty hard to have a history. And I do agree with, I would agree with Josh as well about sort of taking rights for granted. Like, I was born in 2000, so basically anything before then is just like, seems like forever ago. I'm so sorry. That's just how my brain works. But I would agree that there are lots of things that we are able to take for granted. I think Sam probably would have a different opinion, because I know you like have fought at Parliament for your own rights and stuff, but lots of people haven't had to. So yeah.
I do want to mention one thing, but my point that I did want to say is another reason that we do come off as not knowing a lot about history, about queer history, is queer history is not very happy. Queer history is a very sad topic for the most part. And, people our age are more often than not baby gays, right? Using the term that like we use, as in like newly fresh out of the closet, just discovering things about the community. You're now happy to be like, not a different person, the person you always were. You're happy to have that come out. You're not going to start talking about negative stuff. It's not like I just graduated and Palestine is burning. Like, I start off with like, when you're happy, you talk about happy stuff and how much happy stuff has happened in queer history. And I completely agree with Midas. Like, the colonization and Islamization and just the religious takeovers of so many countries has erased queer history in so much. I see Prathmesh in the chat talking about how in India the history of LGBT community just doesn't even exist. And that's more or less true. We have some trans people that we worship, but they're also beggars on the street. Like, how do you worship it's really messed up, and because of the outside influences that came in. And so, yeah, we can know as much as we want about your history. Like, we can learn as much as we want about US and Canadian and like that, just the global North's history, but the global South also has so much to learn about too. And the thing is that you might just encounter a queer person that is perhaps more interested in the global South than the global North because they're from the global South.
I want
Um,
to add to the
yeah, go ahead.
that
Yeah.
part of the history. I feel like here, like in Canada, in my experience, there's this idea of that the fight is over. We're not getting killed anymore. We're not getting like bullied, and we are not getting harmed. If anything happens, when we go to law, the law is going to protect us. That's the bottom line. And we just don't realize like how many countries still don't have that. In 2021, only like less than 1/3 of the whole countries have laws that actually protect queer and trans people. 13 countries still have death penalties. Why a person who was born in those countries and like constantly facing those fears and those dangers wants to know about other queer people around the world getting discriminated against or just dying?
I completely agree. It's very hard to listen to other people's history when you just recently got used to the fact that you're not going to be murdered.
And I understand that there's a good thing where we can see that, hey, like in US, the situation was bad, but then they did a protest and everything didn't go away, but it became better. But in a lot of these countries, this is not an option. Like, people can't even protest for not having food. I'm not going to go there and talk about, I want to protest because I'm queer and I don't have basic human rights.
Thank you. I think you are all making great and important, and like, I think talking about, where is our history situated, what history is super important, especially, knowing that this is a panel made up from folks who aren't all just born and raised in KW or Ontario, and acknowledging colonization and the effect it's had on history. I think history is a huge, I think we could do a 2-hour talk just about what that means and what's been erased and what's died with, like with the AIDS crisis, with all of these things. And it's there, and that's just, like one point of view. There's a lot. So thank you for all those answers. Okay, I'm going to move to the next question, which is, what do you think can contribute to the success of queer intergenerational projects? What kind of events or projects would you like to see or be interested in participating in, besides this one?
So I immediately thought of this project that we're working on with Glow called Queer Futures Are Bright. That's something that Sarah started, I guess. And it's, so far I think we've had 2 where like queer adults come and they talk about their lives, and they talk about, 3, yes, you're right. They talk about the fact that they have jobs, they have families, they are successful in life. This like really hits a chord, because when I came out, I was told, you're not going to have a life. You are not going to be able to have a job. You're not going to have a family. You're going to be alone for the rest of your life. This is a decision that is going to ostracize you from everyone. And that's so hard for me to get over the fact that I do want a job. I want a family. And so seeing projects like that, like I originally was in engineering and I switched into knowledge integration, but in engineering, I did not meet a single out trans guy. And I've Googled it. I have reached out to people. I have used all of my community connections. To this day, I have not met an out trans guy in engineering. And so I think part of the success of like intergenerational connections is we need role models, and we need to see that we can do it, because at some point, like when I was in engineering, I'd basically just stop my activism work because I felt like I need to hide. I need to not acknowledge the fact that I'm trans, because that's not okay, and I won't get anywhere. So I think that projects like that are really, really helpful.
Hey, Sam, I have a friend who is trans non-binary engineer who has a successful job with a city. And if you want to know them, let me know. They're out there. And I also want to let you all know I'm an older queer person with a pretty okay job at the region and a child and a wife. And people told me I would never have a child. So he's my spite baby. Anyone else? I don't care if anyone knows that. Does anyone else want to comment on this one?
Well, personally, I just like to about the question, like, what would you like to see? Honestly, there's one thing I always wanted, like, ever since I was a little boy, I've always wanted a gunkle, which is just like, for people that don't know, a gay uncle. And it doesn't have to be an uncle, it can be an aunt or whatever, right? But just like, a lot of people, for a lot of people, having a gunkle in their lives has been really, really instrumental in their coming out or in their journey, or in general, gunkle, which is be an older queer person. I mean, your uncle is just because, when you're 11, you're probably not allowed to meet random people that aren't related to you, that are much older than you, but your uncle's probably fine. So, I mean, if we could have something like that, hire a gunkle kind of a thing, or, just like a meeting where you get to meet some older people in the community, and you could find your own gunkle. You know what I mean?
We need a OK Cupid just to match older queers with younger queers. I will let you know that joining groups once you leave school, like Spectrum or other local organizations, certainly helps facilitate that. Anyone else with ideas on what they would have for intergenerational projects or work or events, or what it could look like? That's okay, we can move on. So I have not, I don't know if I'm an elder. I'm 37, I don't know, or 38. I don't even know how old I am, actually. I have to do them. I think I'm 37. But I feel this question in many ways, because the question is, how can we as elders support you in your liberation work? We're very tired and need to pass the torch to you. And I think, like, a reckoning I've had as a queer person and as someone who spent a lot of time doing activism before I kind of got married and working and mom and tired, is that, like, there's been a lot of fights that have already happened that have gotten queer folks where they're now, and there's so much more work still to be done. Like, I can recognize that I'm able to be very comfortably out, but I'm also like a cis white woman, and that makes all the difference for me. And there's a lot of work for other groups who are way more marginalized. So what would you want for support for your work towards queer liberation?
I think one of the things that's been really helpful personally is just having events like this where people have opportunities to share their stories and like share reminders. Because one of the things that's been reiterated a few times now is like, don't get complacent, because you could lose something that you take for granted. And because that's not something I had ever thought of before. And hearing, like, just having those experiences, being able to hear them from people who like have lived those experiences was really helpful. And having, being able to go back, like having the historical projects, you can go back and you can see like what kind of issues they had in the past, and the different responses. I remember there have been a few that I've seen, like little opinion pieces in the newspaper going back and forth that have been very, that had some great insults that I loved. So those are great inspiration going forward. But honestly, just hearing that kind of thing has been super helpful for me personally, I think.
I can't speak to everyone's experience here, but in my experience, this is also like a byproduct of my culture, which hey, I'm like Indian, I'm brown. There's quite a few of us, more than you white people. So like I can talk about this. But a lot of us have had this experience that when you're younger, a lot of what you say is nullified because you're younger, you don't know anything. Experience is the ultimate teacher. So a lot of times when we talk about queer rights, when we talk about, I don't know, the fact that we exist, even sometimes, we're not listened to because, who wants to listen to the babies, right? They don't know anything. You only know much more advanced things than any of us ever did in terms of technology, and are much more connected than anyone, have access to information at the tip of your fingertips. So obviously you know nothing. So of course, when this stuff like this comes into play, what I find really useful are older people like agreeing with us, older people also educating and standing up for us. Like, I'll be honest, I don't care if I am heard as long as my message is heard. So in that sense, talking about your existence, still maintaining your existence, talking to your annoying straight coworkers that seem to ask you all these questions like, who's the big spoon, or who wears the pants in the house? Like, these can be very, very frustrating, but sometimes just answering these questions in an educational way and helping them, like, even like opening their minds even a little bit is a small step, right? And there's other things you can do that we can't do, like, I can't speak for all of us again, but we're kind of sort of broke right now. So we can't really put up a lot of monies into charities, right? Like, I've heard, like, I love the Rainbow Railroad, but I can't do anything for them except for donate to them. There's no other way I can help. But if you have money, donate to them. So please donate to charities that help other countries in the world, not just countries where gay rights exist. Because I mean, we're just going, if you're going to continue with just building up your community, you're just going to create a much more divided world. And what's that going to do is just going to make this, like, it's going to make the stereotype of the immigrant or the refugee so much more prevalent. It's going to make certain religions look so much more intolerant. We need help across the globe. So that's what I think is something that we need to start working on right now, because right now a lot of countries are beginning to modernize. Saudi Arabia is letting women go outside. All right, that's a big deal. There's like small things that are happening. We're slowly getting better. So yeah, we have these little chips. Help us crack them. That's what I can say.
That was dry. I'm sorry. It did not translate. I wanted to say two things. The second one is a joke, but if you want to take it, then please do. Just realizing that the job that we're doing is not necessarily the same thing that you've done in the past. It doesn't mean that we are not doing anything. You can just see and believe that we are doing everything that we can towards this goal of like all of us having a better life. It just, sometimes it's different. And the second one is if you have a business, please hire us. We are broke. We need jobs. You already made that living. We are struggling.
There. I'm getting paid. Hire all of you. So we have 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we wrap things up with with anything anyone wants to add. Like, to summarize where we've been tonight, we've talked about silos within queer communities and the strengths of those, and also some of the issues that come with it. We have talked about a lot about intergenerational communication and organizing and connection, and what that looks like, and where we're missing things, and where one side is seeing something and the other side is seeing the other, and maybe even me calling them sides is part of the problem too. And we have talked about what older folks want from you and what you want from older folks. I also want to just say that the push and pull of being younger and not feeling heard, or feeling like it's never ending, it feels like. And I don't know what we do about that. Like, it is weird how you can age a decade or more, and it happens, and I don't know how it's a larger social issue, but I want to acknowledge that I think older folks should reflect more on what that felt like. But I want to give you all just a minute or two to maybe sum up anything that sticks out for you, anything you want to leave folks with before we wrap up.
Just one thing on my end, and this is more just like a general PSA, I guess, for everybody, is the way that you can like really help people that you don't even know is just by telling your story to people that you're friends with. So I know, like, coming out and being out in front of a public setting isn't always the greatest in a, homophobic setting, but you never know who you could be helping. Zahra knows this, but I recently had a roommate who I lived with for 8 months recently came out. So he's been asking me questions, and he's like, honestly, you like being out is what kind of helped me like figure things out. And I was kind of like, well, you could have just always asked. I think we as queer people, you don't even have to do active projects to be liberating other people, to be expressing your opinions, to be teaching others. Just be yourself, and it sort of just flows naturally from there. So I would just encourage everybody to do that.
Great.
I think
Yeah.
what you said about that, like, ask. I cannot tell you how many people make assumptions about me. It happens in my coursework. It happens when I was in engineering. People would come up to my friends and say, hey, what's going on with this person? Like, I'm a human. I have my own experiences, and I know myself best. And so I think that giving space for that, and understanding that maybe things are not always going to be the same. And I guess, like, really the biggest thing that I took out of some of these questions is, please be a mentor to us, because we need it. And like you said, you're tired, you're burnt out. We are too. It's like Sarah said, I was on Parliament fighting for the right to like be considered like legally protected under the Criminal Code of Canada. That's something that happened in 2016. It's still new. It's something that I did as soon as I came out, because I had to do it, so be a mentor, tell us that it's okay, and give us a little bit more love.
Take it easy on you guys. Okay, I hate to do this. Zahra, okay, you go quick. We can run a couple minutes over. Sorry, Scott.
Well, I was just gonna, I guess I'm gonna just share a couple of anecdotes. I had one, I'll start with my positive anecdote that as like I like studying, I like academia. And by that, I mean, I'm too terrified of what's outside of academia. But in general, like when I walk past an office door and I see a tiny little pride sticker, that fills me with so much joy. And it's just the small things. So like, yeah, it's those tiny things that you think might not make that much of a difference that kind of do, walking into class and seeing your TA or your professor with a little with a little pride sticker on their laptop, or wearing like a rainbow dress, it makes much more of a difference than people realize. I remember when my prof you had a very weird dating joke and just used they instead of he or she, and that made so much of a difference. This was, I think, like the second week of my first term at school that happened, and I still have carried that with me. I still remember the name of the prof, Dave Tompkins Supremacy. I still remember the name of the prof. I still remember all of the details. I remember what I was wearing, because just hearing that for the first time, I like that. Another bad anecdote I guess I have is actually, Sam, it's the same prof you're talking about. I can guarantee you. This was a gender studies class. And for participation, we would get gender warrior medals for defending the community. Don't do that, guys. Don't be weird. That's what I want to say. Please don't be weird.
I was a women's studies minor at UW over a decade ago, and I'm concerned things have not changed for the better in many ways, unfortunately. Abolish women's studies in some ways.
They've renamed it to gender and social justice, which has made it less likely for anyone to take it, because social justice has such great connotations to it, does it not?
And is it some of the same like second wave feminist profs? Like, is that still the problem? Anyway, okay. I want to just thank you all and wrap things up and say that this is really wonderful and I'm glad you came. And thank you to the folks who submitted questions because they certainly ignited very interesting topics. This is the last day of Pride Month, I guess. Pride Month is so weird always, and this year, thank you for showing your bracelet, Sarah. It's been lovely to spend a bit of time with everyone tonight. Thank you to everyone who participated. And there's more to queer life than just June, so we'll keep these things going, and you can get involved with Spectrum or Glow or the UW Drag Club, any other organizations. A lot of stuff's been put in the chat here. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Take care.